show an end-to-end, AI use for a topic. So there was an article about the Millennium Prize, which Google DeepMind is using, AI to try and find a solution for. So you start reading the article, it talks about Navier-Stokes equations, right? Okay, that's interesting. But now we asked the AI tool, let me go down. What is the Navier-Stokes equation, right? So then it tells you it's a set of partial differential equations. Okay, great. They're essentially Newton's second law applied to fluids. So now here's the key. Who is Newton and what is his second law? See how we're thinking about things in light of students seeing this information for the first time. So we have the equation, the different values, definitions, and okay, so AI has given that prompt, right? Let me go down and we say this. Who came up with it? That is a question we always want to ask in every science class. Why? Because students can see equations everywhere. But why do these equations exist? Then you get a little bit of, okay, it's Claude, Lewis, Navier, okay, and Stokes. But here's the thing. I know that this information is not complete because my guy has not been talked about yet. And you'll see why in a second. Then it says the work built on Leonhard Euler's equations. That's my guy, Leonhard Euler, which modeled ideal, fluids without viscosity. By the way, then I said, okay, go ahead and give me more of a timeline and some information. Euler's equations came in 1757. Euler was born in 1707 to 1783. Okay, so I have some context about Euler. So then it tells us a little bit about Euler. Okay, let's carry on. We can read more about the information about the idea from earlier people all the way to the current state of affairs of that thing. That's what we can use AI to do. We can use AI to teach people and bring them to the current state by going back to where things began on those topics. But let's actually go even further back. Who influenced Euler? So we go down and again, I can send this prompt later if you want. There's a timeline that the AI tool can make, showing you the timeline 1757 and so on. But then I said, who influenced Euler to create the equations? Okay, well, Newton, of course, is involved, right? Newton and Bernoulli. Bernoulli was Euler's teacher. This was Bernoulli and his brother, by the way. But Bernoulli, Johann Bernoulli was Euler's teacher. And Johann Bernoulli was the father of Daniel Bernoulli, who came up with Bernoulli's principle. Now you begin to see, okay, this is interesting. Euler's friend and collaborator is Daniel. Okay, Daniel actually helped Euler with relocating to Russia, which is another day's story. Okay, and then we keep going. We see some different people. Okay, interesting. Then we ask, who influenced Newton on this? Okay, so now it goes back to Archimedes. Oh, now we're talking about the Greeks. Okay, and hero of Alexandria and the Renaissance, and Leonardo da Vinci, Torricelli and Blaise Pascal, Galileo. You see how these guys influenced Newton, right? And Newton was friends with Robert Boyle, who was out at Oxford. Newton was at Cambridge. Okay, let's go one step back. Who influenced? Look at how we can see a pattern. Archimedes, Da Vinci, Galileo, Pascal, Newton, Bernoulli, Euler, Navier and Stokes, and now Google DeepMind. But who influenced Archimedes? Okay, well, let's go back and see how the Egyptians affected them. The Babylonians affected them. Keep in mind, Daniel served with the Babylonians in the king's court. Remember Daniel in the Bible, right? So now you're seeing how it's connecting to history. Early Greek natural philosophy, tales of Miletus, and all these guys around 600 BC. Pythagoras lived around this time as well. So now you're seeing how the Greeks affected, of course, Archimedes, who came from that region as well, and then how they affected people later on. Plato, Aristotle. Okay, then we go back even further and we ask who influenced the Egyptians. Now it's interesting because you're talking about Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley. Notice now we're talking about some early times, right? So it's interesting to be able to trace an idea back. And why did the Egyptians need this? Well, the irrigation and canals. The Sumerians, the Mesopotamians, they needed irrigation systems. Okay, now you begin to see why the topic matters. Because you're going back to times where the topic didn't exist. This is part of what I think needs to happen. Now, some of this is written within a circular worldview. Some of this you have to then give it, for example, let me give you an example. Within a Christian worldview, you can try to create boundaries for this question, right? Whether it's an older Earth creationist view, a younger Earth creationist view, you can ask and have it bind within a time frame, right? So if you want to try and put it within a young earth creationist view to understand early civilizations, you could do that. Or if it's an old earth creationist view, you can try and see how that would make sense. Again, these are things that you can play around with AI, right? So I put it within a young earth creationist view to see, okay, Adam and Eve, again, they've been made in the image of God, and within this context, we're seeing that everything is happening within a certain time frame, right? The earliest people were intelligent. The earliest human beings were intelligent, is where I stand on this issue. So Noah was intelligent, right? And we know there was a flood. And we can go into more details about this on the theological side. But the point is, once you start getting into the questions of the origin, you have to answer some serious questions about how did the universe begin? How old are humans as a species, right? Where did they come from? I believe they were made in the image of God. And that's part of why we see humans being different right from the beginning. Okay. We could talk more about the theological implications of all this, but that's how this started. It started from just a question that had to do with Navier-Stokes equation, and now we're talking about worldview. AI can be used as a tool for these kinds of analysis because it has a lot of that data in the database, right? Now, some of this has to be checked and verified, of course, 100%. But just even giving us the idea to begin to think about the influence of previous civilizations to the present, I think is pretty cool. Thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe, like, and share as I begin to show how, again, AI can be used as a tool to help students learn how to research history. Have a blessed day.